Hello everybody, welcome to my channel, Ashley's Treasure, and today I'm going to do another fun layout on my Winter Woodland journal. And this page, I'm going to distress the edges with the Distressed Oxide Frayed Burlap because this is one of the scrapbook pages and the back of it is all white and I don't want to leave it white. I want to do something fun. And so yes, I'm going to start off with this, distress all edges, because there's this old paper that I got from another book, and it's a little bit smaller, so I wanted to distress the edges so that the white wouldn't show. Here's the paper that I'm going to use. Look how aged it is. I did not distress that. It's naturally like that. And so it was a little bit shorter, but it was wider, so I'm going to trim a little bit here, so there'll be about probably like an eighth of an inch gap, or around it. But this page was very bitter, so if I bent it, it would definitely crack. And so now it's kind of got like an even border around it. And I'm going to use this fun stamp, distressed looking stamp, which is I think it was from Primo Marketing. And again, I'm going to use the Distressed Oxide, the Frayed Burlap, to give the same look. And trying to line it up just right, because I only get one shot at this. And luckily it turned out pretty good. I was happy with my result. So yeah, I'm just kind of pressing it good to make sure it's all on there. Sorry, kind of wobbled the table a little bit. And carefully lifting it up. And yes, it turned out pretty good. I accidentally smeared a little bit right there. And then the stamp was a tad bit shorter than the book page, so I tried to put stamp a little bit on those gaps right there. And it was very juicy. It was smearing. You can see how wet it is right there. You can see it glimmering against the light. So it took a long time for that old paper to absorb that type of ink. And so I was just pressing it onto a scrap piece of a book page and to absorb the extra ink off of it. So that way I wouldn't make the same mistake and smear it. But luckily the part that I did smear was in the center, which is going to be cut out anyways. So now I'm trying to line up my page just right where it's going to be on the page. And I'm going to use my trusty dusty permanent glue stick. And I'm using this instead of my art glitter glue because this is very old book page and it's delicate, and it would I can just see it bubbling up, and and I don't want that. So that's why I'm using my glue stick, so it'll be flat and not have any bubbles and warped and whatnot. So I'm putting a really good amount because I was afraid if I didn't, that it might have like an air bubble or something in there, and because of how delicate it is, it would crack. So I made sure I coated it really good with the glue. And I only get like one chance to lay this down, so I'm trying to lay it down just right, because I'm afraid if I tried tearing it off, it would just break. But I lucked out, and you can see the little border from the part that I distressed. I really liked how that looked. It made it stand out. So it kind of looks like I distressed the page, but the book page, but I really didn't. All right, now I'm going to be cutting a 3x3 square, which just happened to be the size of this acrylic block that I have, so it was perfect. It made it so much easier. And so I'm just using my ruler and trying to center it into the page a little bit. I want a little bit more further up. I didn't want it exactly centered, like up and down. I wanted it further up, but centered, if that makes any sense. And then I'm using it as a stencil and just drawing all four sides where I'm going to cut the window. And now I'm just going to use a little craft knife and a ruler and carefully cut out all four sides. And I was cutting it on my cutting mat so I won't cut the table. And save that for a tag or something. And now I'm going to just dress the inside on this side so that none of the white will show from where I cut it out. So I'm just carefully distressing all four sides with the same ink, which was the frayed burlap, the oxide. And then I'm going to use a couple pages from a German book, but it was like a school book, like learning German. I wanted that because of the font, which I also did use for another layout that I did as well, the one with the wolf. But hard to believe, the writing was 3 inches, just the same as the window that I was doing. I needed it to be bigger than that. So luckily this one had like some notes on the side, so I was able to still have some writing on there instead of having like a blank part with no writing on it. And here I'm trying to measure how big I want the frame, and I want it to end up deciding to have it 3/8 of an inch thick. And so I'm going to measure 3/8 from the square that I drew. So I'm making little marks so I know where to draw a line so I can connect them. Now connect the 2 lines together. And now going to do the same thing on the top and the bottom. So again, I'm measuring 3/8, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then doing a little bit further on the top again. 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, and connecting them. And now that's going to be the size of my frame. So I used my trimmer to cut it off, and the blade is very dull, so it did not cut good at all. And plus this paper is very unique. It's kind of thin and it's kind of difficult, but I tried again and it was just tearing. So I was a little frustrated about that. But then I'm kind of glad that it did that, because it kind of gave that torn look, and I thought that would actually look kind of cool on it, give it some more fun texture instead of a clean cut. So I just got my ruler out and just tore off the extra pieces. And but then the inside would be really hard to tear, so that part I am going to cut out. So I was going to just use my craft knife again, but it was difficult with this paper because I think it's because of how thin it was. It was just very different paper. It kind of had like, it was very thin, but it almost had like a glossy feel to it in a way, but it wasn't glossy. It was very, very unique paper. So yeah, I just used my scissors, and I just cut an X in it so I could get my scissors in there and just cut it with the freehand. And so I'm placing it on the hole that I cut out and making sure it all lines up well. It's going the way I want it, but I want to have the corners, instead of being straight, I wanted to have some curves. So I'm using my Fisker corner punch, and I'm using the smallest one. And it was very difficult being so dainty, that thin paper, and then being so thin. But I made it work. It actually cut decent, so I was surprised. That was just really weird paper. And now I like that a lot more than the straight corners. And so now I'm just erasing the pencil marks because I don't want that to show. And now I'm going to do 2 more frames, but this time it's going to be smaller. It's going to go inside of it. So I am using the acrylic box so I know the size of the window, and then that way I can figure out how small I want the next frame to fit inside of it. And so I was debating about doing 1/4 of an inch, but I ended up going 3/8 again. And then I thought about doing a 1/4 of an inch thick frame, but I ended up liking the 3/8 instead. I thought it would be easier to just stick with the 3/8 because that's what I was already going with. So I'm going 3/8 inside of the square because that's how much smaller it's going to be from the first one. And so this will be the outer line of the frame. So again, just do 3/8 of an inch shorter. 1, 2, 3. Draw a little line. Do it again. 1, 2, 3. And I had like the hardest time seeing it because it was on the letter, so I kept having to make it a little bit darker. Line them up. And now this is how big my next 2 frames are going to be. And so here's going to be the inner part of the frame. Now I'm doing the same thing again, 3/8 of an inch smaller. And again, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And I tried, because this is going to be the inner part of the frame, I didn't want to draw too much on it because I wanted, because of being on book page, all the writing that's already on there, it was hard to see the lines. And so I was making it dark enough, but because of this being the inner part of it, I didn't want the draw lines on the part that I'm going to use because I want to make sure it would all erase and not show. So I'm only drawing on the part that needs to be where I'm going to be cutting it. Alright, so I'm cutting the inside out first. So I'm just drawing an X again so it'd be easier to get the scissors in there. And carefully just cutting all 4 sides. erasing the pencil marks. And now I'm going to tear the outside so it'll look just like the bigger one. And it was nice having it, being able to do both of them at the same time. It saved half the time. So this is when I realized that I wished that I didn't cut the center out, that I cut the corners first because of how hard it was with the big one. And it was nice being able, so at least I was able to do the first two corners together. So they were lined up just right. Because I need them to be the exact same. And so now I'm going to do the last two corners with the corner punch. Alright, now I forgot that I need another big frame that I should have done too. This is for on the other side of the book page. So I'm just trying to figure out where I want this on the page. And I'm just going to, instead of doing all the measurements, I'm just going to pretty much trace the first frame that I did. So I'm just placing the ruler down and doing the tear look again. And this time, instead of cutting the center out, I am cutting the corners first. That made it a lot easier, and so it wasn't so dainty and hard to get. Yes, that was definitely a lot easier and faster. And so now I'm just going to line this up again. And then I'm going to place the block inside there, so it'll be at the exact same spot. And then carefully remove the first frame without tearing it. And then use the block as a stencil where I need to cut the inside off. The inside of the frame off. And again, going to just cut necks in it so it's easier to get the scissors in and cut off all four sides. And the first line, I did a terrible job. I did not cut straight whatsoever. So I had to go back and straighten it out. Luckily, the other three sides were much better, much straighter. And then making sure that all the pencil marks are erased so they won't show. And now I'm going to mark which part's going to be shown and which part's not going to be shown and which ones are going to be on which side of the page. And then here I'm going to cover these holes with this lace that is from a scarf that I got from a thrift store. And I'm just doing little dabs with a marker so I can see where on the lace I'm going to cut it. Which I should have used something else, because the Sharpie, of course, being on lace, there's a little spot that it went through. And now I'm just going to cut just inside of the dots, because I need it to just be a little bit smaller to be inside of the frame. found out it did help just laying the block down to make it just a little bit bigger than the block. Did not cut straight whatsoever, but that's okay. It's going to be covered with the frames. And so because of the other side having that very delicate book page, I am going to glue this part on this side of the scrapbook paper. And now just lining up the frame to make sure everything's lined up right and none of the lace is sticking out. And there were some spots that was, so I'm just trimming it down to fit better. I am going to be using my art glitter glue, and I'm doing a decent amount because I noticed that whenever I use lace or fabric or ribbons that just using a tad bit of art glitter glue, it doesn't stick well, so it does need a decent amount and it'll work just fine, which it did. So I did a decent amount and just pressing it down, and it stuck quite well. And now just laying the lace down again, making sure, or the frame down, and making sure none of the lace is sticking out. And there's a little bit on the left side that was too long, so I trimmed that down. And I think there was like a tad bit on the bottom right. Yeah, that was a lot better. Yeah, there was just a string hanging out. Although one thing that I wish I did because of the book pages, you know, they were quite thin. I should have glued the book pages on like a type of cardstock to thicken it and make it stronger, and then do all the measurements and cut it out that way. And especially for being on this lace that was quite dimensional, that would have made it a lot better and sturdier. So if you're doing anything like that, I would definitely recommend that. And so checking out on the other side, I like the way this is going. And so now I'm going to start gluing on the other frame. And I was starting to use the art glitter glue, and I didn't want to use the art glitter glue because of the delicate paper. I was afraid of it warping, and I realized I was doing this. So I'm trying to like get it off, and I'm going to use my glue stick instead. Luckily, I caught myself before I placed it down. Just then, once I got glue stick all over it, I was just starting to lay it down and forgot to distress it. Luckily, I caught myself again. And so I got one of the inks out and was getting ready to ink it and realized I grabbed the wrong kind. I grabbed pumice stone, and that was not the right one. Luckily, I caught myself again. And again, I used the frayed burlap to match the rest of it, the rest of the page. And my hands were so sticky. I had glue all over my fingers. So I was just trying to do it really fast. And of course, it kept getting all over my fingers. And gosh, having ink really sticks to the glue on your hand. It makes it very difficult to wash off. But the frame definitely needed it. It looks completely different now, and it looks like it belongs there, having the distressed edging just like everything else. I'm just so glad I caught myself before I did that, because then I could just see it would have been a mess. Trying to tear it off and doing it all over, all the measurements all over again. And now I'm lining it up to make sure it looks good, and it looks so much better now. And now I almost got art glitter glue on it again, but I caught myself in, applying the glue stick instead. and carefully pressing it down, trying not to smear ink everywhere. And I like where this is going. And so now it is time for the smaller ones. And again, making sure they're both facing the same direction. And I'm going to mark the inside of and which page they're going to be on so that they will line up correctly. And I remember this time to use the frayed burlap distress oxide this time. But luckily I only had to do it on one of them. Alright, so I laid some extra paper behind, scrap paper, because I'm going to glue this down. And this, I did use the art glitter glue this time because it's going to go onto the lace. And again, use a decent amount so that it would stick on the lace. And got the paper so it won't stick onto my table. And now doing the same thing on the other page. And the frames on this side I did not want distressed because the page was not distressed. And trying to make sure it's lined up right, which was kind of hard to see because it being such light colors. And it wasn't until I turned it around I found out that I was a little off. So I carefully tried to straighten it out. Luckily, I was able to move it enough to look better before it permanently dried. There we go, all better. And so now I fussy cut a couple birds out of a bird book. I found a chickadee and a nuthatch, and I was debating which one. I really wanted to use a chickadee, but its tail was too long that it would go off the page. So I'm using the nuthatch again. And on the other side, I'm going to use this bird, which I forgot what the name was. It was slated blue or slated gray something. I can't remember the correct name of the bird. And so I got some embellishments from Tim Holtz. It was the color palette that I was going to use for the last layout that I did with the wolf, but I ended up not using. And I really like this one, but it was like too big, so that's why I cut the numbers off. I like the color. But the corners were like curved, so I didn't like the look, so I ended up straightening it. Yeah, it didn't look right being curved like that. So that's why I was cutting that off. Make it look better. And then I needed something on the top. So I got this little book of all these little embellishments that I got from a dollar store. And it's more purple themed, but they had a lot of pieces that were wood, and it did have some blue in there too. But I like that soft wood color, so I was punching all them out. Going through the pages trying to find some more. There was this little blue bow that I thought about using, but I didn't want to fussy cut that out. But I was looking again, and there's this bigger piece that looked like wood. There was a little blue ticket, and then there was looked like old book page. So I thought I could fiddle with these and see what kind of little cluster I can do on the top right. The book pages end up being too big, but so I used that little piece of wood and the ticket, and I like the way that looked, but I still needed something else. I tried using a piece of the wood since the bird was on a tree, so I thought maybe I could put some wood on that side too, but I didn't quite like the way it looked. So I tried adding some of the same wood on near the bird and it still didn't look right. So I used this little circle. It was like a mandala, and I liked that a lot more, and it gave more of the colors that were going on. And of course, since I had everything else distressed on this page, I had to distress all of these ones as well. And I used the correct ink, the same ink, the frayed burlap. I distressed everything but the bird. The bird I actually, when I fussy cut it, I actually left a very fine white line around it so that it would stand out against that dark paper, because I was afraid if I did it exactly, on the line, that it would blend in too much. Now I'm going to start gluing everything down. And then, of course, I put the scrap page behind it so that the glue wouldn't go through the lace and stick on the other side of the book page. I like this little label because it was stamped in blue ink instead of black. I thought it went with everything else since it has a lot of blue going on. And now I'm going to start gluing down the little cluster in the top right. I glued the circle behind the ticket first, and then gluing all that down onto the little piece of wood, and then gluing all that down on the page, on the top right corner of the frame. And I really like the way that's looking, so now it's time to decorate the other side. And so I'm going to use that part that I cut the numbers off. There was a tad bit on the right side that didn't have any typing on. And so I'm tearing that off and then tearing off the straight edges as well, so it's all distressed. Use some more of the same color. And so I wanted something there to cover up some of the Sharpie that went through. I also found a scrap piece of lace that I really liked. It was just the right size and color, and it kind of made me think of like snowflakes. And so it looked like the bird had like something to stand on. It looked like it was standing on snow. And so I liked where everything was going, so I started gluing everything down. I did end up using one of the little pieces of wood after all. Gluing down the lace with the art glitter glue again, and I put a decent amount so I know that it would stick. Just tapping it down. And now time to add the bird. And I did this on the bottom right corner so that it would cover up the bird on the other side through the lace. But there was still a tad bit showing above it, so I needed to find something else to put on top of it. And that was melted ice or icicles and a snowflake that I fussy cutted from the last project. Those were scrappies that end up not going or being used, so they ended up working perfect for this one, and I was glad I was able to use those up. And then I thought I could use some of these that I did, which I will have the link to the video of this as well that I made, all the stamping I did on fabric. I thought I could possibly use one of these. I tried putting it behind the head, but then it didn't look right having numbers behind its head. So then there was this little piece that I thought about using on the bottom right, which could have worked. But I thought it was too dark. So I used this one because it was in a lighter color. If I remember right, this was the pumice stone oxide that I used. And I liked where that was going, so I was going to play with this one. Set the other ones aside. And I still was trying to find something in the back. And I think this is when I found another label that was just like the one I used on the other side. And I just needed a small piece of it. And I'm just trying to line up just right to cover up the rest of the bird from the other side. But I needed to cut off at the bottom right corner because it was sticking out underneath the bird's beak. And so I just kept trying to get it just in the right spot and making sure none of it was sticking out underneath the beak because I thought that would look weird. I had to trim off a little bit more, and finally it was looking right, so now I could glue it down. I'm going to carefully glue the bird's head back down. And then I wasn't sure if I wanted to use those numbers there or not, so I was going to fiddle with some other stuff. I thought maybe placing it somewhere else. I thought about placing it there by the birds, then I'm like, no, that does not look right. It looks like the bird is pooping out numbers. So I'm like, yeah, I don't want anything behind it like that because that just didn't look right. And so this is when I got some stickers out from Tim Holtz. There was a couple that I found that I thought could work because of the sayings, like snow. This one was holly and evergreens because there was like evergreen trees on the scrapbook paper. And so I fiddled with some of them trying to make it work. And that one was just too long. And so there's this one that just said snow. It was smaller and it fit. But I really like the saying of the other one. So I thought maybe cutting it in half, it would look better. And now looking at it, it's not that bad. It could have worked. But at the time, it didn't look right to me. It said, what did it say? I can't remember what it said. It said, in the cold and frosty air. But yeah, this was from the last Christmas collection. This is the sticker book. It's got like 2 pages of like words from book pages. And so I tried, since I really like the saying, I tried putting it on the other side, and I already had so much going on. It just didn't look right. It just didn't fit in. So I just put it back and hopefully use it for another project. And so finally, it's done. I finally like the way it looks. And here's a close-up. I really like how that turned out. And then here's a close-up to the other side. I like this little lace window with a double frame. I think that's what I'm going to call it, double frame lace window. And then this is what it's going to look like in the page or in the book. And it happened to be just perfect because this looks just like the birds in the book. And so this is the other side. I still got to fill up the right side because it's just blank. So I got to do something on the side. I just don't know what yet. Because on the other side is the wolf that I did. So what do you think? Do you like the way it turned out? I sure do. Maybe it'll give you ideas. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe, and I will talk to you later. Bye.